The Canadiens actually got off to a good start in Utah, leading after the first period by a score of 2-0. But 3 goals inside of 4 minutes by the Utah Mammoth got everybody thinking, oh no, here we go again. But the Canadiens showed some character. 2 goals in the third and a glorious performance by Jakub Dobeš. They hold on for a 4-3 victory in regulation versus the Mammoth. Let's talk some puck. Hey gang, Costa here for PuckTalk Montreal, welcoming you to the post-game show for this November 26th, but actually posted on the 27th version, as the Montreal Canadiens come away with a 4-3 win in regulation over the Utah Mammoth. Now, granted, I thought this would probably be the only game on this trip that the Canadiens will get points in, but that almost didn't happen. So let's not waste any time and get to the highlights, and those are brought to you by Instacustoms. Instacustoms.com is Canada's highest rated print shop with over 3,000 Google reviews and a 4.9 star rating. They offer direct-to-garment printing on all your favorite clothing, along with coffee and travel mugs, and they even offer embroidery. Habs won a Stanley Cup? You can win too on Stanley Street at Instacustoms.com. Now, one of the things the Montreal Canadiens needed tonight was the power play to get going, and it did. About midway through the first period, Zach Bolduc, yes, the guy I said shouldn't be on the first line anymore, scores on the power play to give the Montreal Canadiens a 1-0 lead. On a great pass here from Hudson, he claps it, one-timer past Vejmelka. Here it is again. Suzuki over to Hudson to Bolduc for the one-timer. That was Nick Suzuki's 399th career point. Later on in the period at 6:37, milestone time, as Nick Suzuki scores to make it 2-0 Montreal, thus getting his 400th career point, as Bolduc gives it to Caulfield. Caulfield for the one-timer to Suzuki. That makes it 2-0, 400 career points for the captain. And just ahead of that play, Zach Bolduc almost gave the puck away to J.J. Peterka right in the slot, but it went off Peterka's skate and bounced right back to Bolduc. Luckily for Montreal. So the first period ends. Everything looks great. The Canadiens are up 2-0, and it seems like they can do no wrong. Well, guess what? The Canadiens can do wrong, because midway through the second period, Brett Hayden scores to make it 2-1 here, as the puck comes back to him and he fires it past Dobeš on the short side. Very quick, very precise. Nice goal by Barrett Hayden. But here's the thing. That goal is extremely reminiscent of the goal the other night by Noah Dobson that was set up by Slavkovsky and Demidov. Tic-tac-toe in the back of the net. So, okay, not bad. Although I think that Dobeš could have come out a little bit more for that shot. But it is what it is. It was a good shot. Made it 2-1. Then, just over 2 minutes later, Kailer Yamamoto scores to make it 2-2. And the mistake here is that Carrier goes to the corner to help out Dobson, and he vacates the front of the net. For what reason? Well, normally when the defenseman has the puck on the boards, it's a forward that should come in and support. Instead, Carrier was in good position in front of the net. Dobson had his man along the boards, and he decides, you know what? I'm going to leave the front of the net to go. That left the forward scrambling to try to cover the front of the net. Yamamoto putting the puck in. We have a tie hockey game. Then, about a minute and a half, or almost 2 minutes later, let's say, it's Michael Carcone. Remember that name because I mentioned him during the pregame yesterday. Carcone comes out from behind the net, shaking off Veleno, gets a quick shot on the wraparound, and then the rebound kicks back out to him, and he floats it over Dobeš to make it 3-2. Here it is again. Carcone fires the puck. Now it hits Dobeš on the right pad, kicks back out into the slot, and Carcone just chops at it. It goes over Dobeš. That made it 3-2. And of course, everybody in Habs Nation who's still awake is yelling at their TV set because, oh my God, here we go again. The goalie can't stop a beach ball. That wasn't the case, folks. In the third period, Jakub Dobeš was the reason why the Canadiens didn't lose this hockey game. But before they could get there, the captain tied the hockey game up. But before he did, on the power play, Yuri Slavkovsky scored, but it was deemed to be offside and the goal was waved off. And if you look at the replay very carefully, it's hard to see and it's granular. I tried to bring it up, but it doesn't really show. To me, it looks like the actual metal blade of Slavkovsky's skate is on the blue line, but you can't tell at that distance. And his blade, the housing, is white. So what do? Well, the officials did what they did. They called it offside. Canadians go back to the power play. Then Suzuki, after a save by Vamilka, a crossbar, a goalpost by Hudson, there's the save, there's the goalpost, and then bang, Suzuki puts it in. Poor Vamilka, his head must have been spinning. One shot here, crossbar there, and bing in the back of the net. Honestly, not much Vamilka could do there. That made it 3-3, and there's hope. Then, a minute and 27 seconds later, I don't know how Ivan Demidov gets this wide open, but a funny hop, the puck comes from Oliver Kapanen off the boards, right to Demidov, who's in the middle of this, and he toe drags and fires and puts it past Vamilka on the blocker side. Here it is again. He pulls it in, bang, he uses the defenseman as a screen. That makes it 4-3. That's your game winner. And the Montreal Canadiens hold on for a 4-3 win. But in the time that Demidov scored till the end of the game, Jakub Dobeš was outstanding. Now, granted, he allowed those 3 goals. Didn't look great on them. But when you look at his body of work for the game, his third period, outstanding. He faced, how many shots was it? 15 shots in the third alone. And the Canadiens managed to win. How he wasn't a star in this hockey game, I would be remiss. They gave the stars to Suzuki, Zach Waldzuk, and Ivan Demidov. But without Dobeš, this game probably doesn't get there because he made some massive saves in the third period. Now it's time to analyze this game, and when we talk analysis, we talk cheapesttshirts.ca. Cheapesttshirts.ca has men's, women's, and children's t-shirts, all sizes, hoodies too, with over 1,000 products to choose from. Anything you need for merchandise or the best deals on everyday clothing, cheapesttshirts.ca is your go-to source. Buy today, ship tomorrow, cheapesttshirts.ca. When you take a look at this hockey game, there are a few things that stand out. Number one, Jakub Dobeš still needs work, okay? I found that he was a bit too far back in his crease. In some occasions, he was up at the top and making good saves and freezing the puck, which was extremely important for the Canadiens in order to get their bearings, especially on the road, and especially in that third period where they were outplayed and outshot 15-5 by the Utah Mammoth. But I found that he was very similarly to Sam Montembeault back off the top of his crease. And when he started this season, he was right at the top of that crease. When he found the most success, top of the crease, making saves, controlling rebounds, very steady. And he wasn't steady on those 3 goals. He was back midway in the crease, playing a little bit conservative. If you go back to my angles video in the Art of the Save series, you'll see what I mean. But he was very conservative as far as his depth in the net. And that's what led to the 3 goals. That and the fact that there was a lot of traffic in front. His rebound control wasn't great. I mean, there are all these little things that came into effect, but it was a 4-minute span. And this was a game where all 7 goals went into the same net. Kind of weird, but you don't see that every day. But it's the truth. The Canadiens scored 4 goals into the goal on the left. And of course, during the second period, that's the same net the Utah Mammoths were shooting at. But that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that in the third period, you saw Dobeš adjust. And the more confidence Dobeš got, the less fidgety he was in net. He was solid. He made saves. Not only initial saves, but rebound saves as well. That's building confidence for him. He ended up facing 34 shots in this hockey game, allowing 3 goals. None too shabby. Well, the Canadiens only got 17 shots on goal. That's not good enough. And while they did score 4 against Vamilka, that's not going to happen against every team, especially not when you're going into a back-to-back where you're facing off against the Vegas Golden Knights and the Colorado Avalanche. Or should I say the Quebec Nordiques. Anyway, that being said, Dobeš really did redeem himself in the third period and has a lot to be proud of because he played extremely well in that third, making key saves when they were needed and keeping the Canadiens in the lead. So I mention all the time that your goalie has to steal games and has to make big saves when you need them. That's exactly what Dobeš did tonight. Okay? So good for him for rebounding from his bad second period and actually redeeming himself and allowing the Canadiens to win this hockey game. One thing that I am very worried about is the play of Alexandre Carrier on the back end. Last season, when he came in and he joined the Montreal Canadiens, deemed a little bit of a savior because he did play well in his own zone. He was a solid defensive presence, blocking shots and doing the right things on the back end. This year, not so much. We've seen it time and time again where he's fallen off balance. He's been out of position. He's chased guys behind the net when he shouldn't have. And tonight, he did the same thing by chasing players over to the boards and not covering his man up front. It's becoming problematic for Carrier. And I think perhaps it's time that he takes a seat. That's not to say that, he doesn't deserve to be in the lineup. But I think he needs to see things from a different perspective, a bird's eye view. Now that you've got Adam Engstrom, who, by the way, made his NHL debut tonight and didn't look bad in the limited ice time that he had. Now that you've got Engstrom with the big club, and he got his feet wet in his first game, obviously some nerves, whatever the case is, but not out of place, which is fine. And he did get a couple of offensive opportunities and good plays out of his own zone, making good passes. So no complaints from me. But for Carrier's sake, I think maybe against the Vegas Golden Knights, I would sit Carrier. And I'd let Arbor Xhekaj get back into the lineup. And I'd keep Engstrom out there. And let Carrier watch. Okay? Because he needs to see where he needs to be on the ice. And I know that Dobson isn't his normal partner. And that's probably what leads to these mistakes. Because every time this has happened to him, Dobson's been on the ice. Dobson normally plays the right side, as does Carrier. So whether it's just, habit and he goes over to that same side or he chases the same players, there has to be something addressed there, especially between Dobson and Carrier. And I think Stefan Robida has to pull him aside and have a little talk with him. It's funny because Robida and Carrier are very similar as far as the players that they are. They're not very big in stature. They play a tough style game, and they don't back down. And so, given the fact that they play such a similar game, I think Robida is the ideal person to pull him back and say, listen, when you're out there with another right-handed defenseman, you guys have to make sure you call what side you're going to be on. If Dobson goes to the right, then you don't go to the right. You stay on the left. You allow forward to be there and support. That's the right way to do it, right? But again, that's when you play box plus one. The Canadiens are a man-to-man defensive team. So, again, I ask myself, Dobson and the man were along the boards. Why is Carrier going over in a 5-on-5 situation? It just didn't make any sense to me. So he needs to watch the play. Maybe you just have him watch video and have him look at the mistake he made. I'm pretty sure he probably knows he made the mistake anyway. But review with him. Remind him, when you're out there with another right-handed defenseman, make sure that you know that, okay, if it's Dobson's going to play the right, you play the left. And you leave it at that, and you see how it goes. But there's got to be some kind of a correction there because Carrier's been on the ice very often lately in goals against versus the Montreal Canadiens. Wasn't it nice to see the power play score? Honestly. And, of course, the Canadiens still have the best power play on the road in the National Hockey League. It's somewhere around 31%. I think it was at 30.8 after the first goal, and they went 2 for 3 tonight. So it's probably somewhere around that range anyway. About 30.8, 31%. But why is that? Well, they played a little bit different style of power play now, where they're not using a bumper player. They're playing more of an umbrella. And the umbrella is essentially the 1-3-1 without the bumper, right? Instead of having a guy in the bumper position, you've got two guys close to the net. So on one side, you've got Nick Suzuki. On the other side, you've got Juraj Slafkovsky. You've got your two guys on the flank and your man at the point. And tonight, it worked. Okay? Bolduc scoring on a nice pass from Hudson, and then, you had the goal that was called off by Yuri Slavkovsky. Again, he was at the side of the goal, fed neatly, and the puck went in. But again, it was waved off because of the offside. And then you have Nick Suzuki scoring off the flank again on the power play after a couple of clean shots, one off the flank on the right-hand side, one from the slot, one from Suzuki. So it's working. Let's maintain that. But the most important part that you saw there was that the shots were coming in. It was a pass and a shot. It wasn't 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 passes in succession before you get a shot on goal. And because you're playing that umbrella, it allows guys like Caulfield, or Suzuki, who was in tight, and Slavkovsky to be able to crash the net after the initial shot comes in looking for rebounds. It's a different type of power play. It's pulling away from that 1-3-1, but that doesn't mean the Canadiens need to abandon it. You can go back to it, right? It's simple enough. If you're playing that umbrella where you've got 3 guys across the top, right? Left, point, right. And then you got the 2 guys towards the front of the net. You can take one of the 2 guys, most likely Slavkovsky because he's on that off wing, move him over towards the flank and have Bolzerk slide into the bumper. Then you have your 1-3-1 again. There's no rule in place that says the power play has to be one specific system. The more of a hybrid that it is, the more difficult it is for the defenders to defend it. So, change it up a little bit. You're going umbrella now. Next time around, go umbrella. Doesn't work, switch to 1-3-1. It gives you options. And that, after all, is what you want to see on the power play. 2 for 3 tonight, a big plus for the Canadiens. I also saw something on the penalty kill that really impressed me, and that is Josh Anderson's pressure on the puck. It was forcing the Utah Mammoth to make quick passes and get pucks, to different players more quickly than they'd like. Now, give them a lot of credit. They moved the puck effectively, despite the fact that the Canadiens were pressuring them on the penalty kill, and they were still getting quality shots on goal. So, all kinds of credit to them. In fact, the Hayden power play goal came off some quick passing. So, credit to the Utah Mammoth for being able to get those pucks in different areas. But again, good goaltending by Dobish mitigated a lot of that stuff, especially in the third period. So the Canadiens need to be more aggressive all around, right? So you can't just have the one guy on the penalty kill being aggressive. If Anderson's going to come out towards the point and pressure the guy who's got the puck, or even on the flank, then the minute the puck is passed, the next guy up has to do the same thing. That next guy up is normally Jake Evans. Evans, a little bit more passive, I find, on the penalty kill, not really pressuring the puck as much as an Anderson would. Understanding that Anderson's a little bit more fleet of foot, and he's faster to get from point A to point B, that still doesn't stop Evans from being within a stick length and being a little bit more aggressive on the penalty kill. I'd like to see that so that the penalty kill can be more effective. The other part that bugged me about the penalty kill is how many times the Montreal Canadiens couldn't get the puck out of their own zone. It boggles the mind how many times they try to send a small little pass up to their teammate to try to clear the puck down the ice. You forget that you can ice the puck on the penalty kill, right? Like you'd see somebody like a Matheson move the puck up to somebody like Josh Anderson who'd be on his backhand. And then he tries to backhand it out, it gets stopped at the blue line, and the Canadiens have to get back in defense mode again. Whereas Matheson would be on his forehand, could easily either pin the puck over to the boards and wait for somebody to come in and support, or he could try to hammer it off the boards straight out and down the ice. If you can do that with an empty net, you can 4 or 5 times, you can do that when you're killing a penalty. That's the other part that bothered me tonight. Despite the fact that the Utah Mammoth did not score with all of those offensive zone faceoffs at the end of the game, which Stenlund won, granted, again, Dobish, big saves late in the game to keep the game at 4-3 because the Utah Mammoth did get a few very good shots on goal late in that third period to try to tie the game up with Vomilka on the bench. But for the amount of times that the Canadiens actually iced the puck, guys, you're professional hockey players. You should know better than that. Once or twice, okay. But 4 times. And on the 5th occasion, it hit the goalpost. It was blown down by the linesman by mistake, and the faceoff came to center ice. But nonetheless, if that would have missed the post, that would have been 5 straight icings, unable to get a change in. And the one thing that you knew that Marty St. Louis did not want to do is call timeout because Andre Tourigny used his timeout when the Mammoths, just before the Mammoths challenged the disallowed goal by Juraj Slafkovsky. So there's a little bit of strategy there. It was a smart decision by Marty St. Louis, but it could have easily backfired if the Canadiens hadn't defended so well. So the Canadiens come away from the West Coast with their first win. Now, tomorrow is a day off. They're traveling to Vegas, where they're going to be taking on the Vegas Golden Knights at 4 p.m. on Friday. Now, we'll preview that game on tomorrow's show, but something to keep in mind. The Mammoths beat the Golden Knights 2 days ago by a score of 5-1. And then tonight, I believe, and I got to check this, hang on, as I look at the scores, I believe that the Ottawa Senators, it's going into a shootout actually right now. The Ottawa Senators and the Golden Knights, 3-3 in a shootout. So we'll see how that one ends up. But the Knights, they could be up for the taking, right, when it comes to Friday. So we'll see what happens. We'll preview it again we'll preview it again tomorrow night before we get to Friday's game. Thanks a lot to instacustoms.com and cheapestt-shirts.ca for sponsoring the show. And thanks for you watching. See you at the preview tomorrow night. Once again, the Canadiens win by a score of 4-3 over the Utah Mammoth.